Welcome to the Hindu Daily.
Today we're diving deep into a stack of essential reads, guiding you through a range of crucial topics.
Absolutely. Our mission is to help you quickly grasp the most important insights and surprising facts.
So you're not just informed, but, truly well-informed.
Exactly. Let's start with the editorial section. First up, India's celebrated demographic dividend.
Right, often hailed as this massive asset.
But this article, it poses a really stark question.
Yeah.
Could this asset actually turn into a demographic time bomb if we don't handle it right?
It's a striking paradox, isn't it? You have India with over 800 million people under 35.
One of the largest youth populations globally.
Huge. Yet there's this rapidly widening gap between education and the skills needed in the real world.
How wide are we talking?
Well, the data points to something like 40, maybe 50% of engineering graduates, for instance, not getting placed in jobs.
Wow, 40 to 50%. That's a massive disconnect.
Yeah.
So what's really driving this?
The article points to a couple of things. An outdated education system, for one.
Struggling to keep pace.
Exactly. And then you have the swift rise of emerging tech, especially artificial intelligence, AI.
Right, AI is everywhere now. How much impact are we talking?
It's projected to impact up to 70% of current global jobs. Think about that.
70%.
And maybe 30% of tasks becoming fully automated.
And meanwhile, our curriculum updates are...
And a much slower cycle. Like 3 years.
3 years. That feels incredibly slow in this context.
It is, and it creates this massive skills crisis. McKinsey suggests nearly 7 out of 10 Indian jobs are at significant risk from automation.
7 out of 10. By when?
By 2030. That's just 5 years away.
Gosh, that's really soon.
It is, and while the World Economic Forum predicts AI will create new jobs, maybe 170 million.
Okay, that's the upside.
But it also predicts 92 million jobs will be displaced. So the need for upskilling, cross-skilling, reskilling, it's just undeniable.
It sounds critical. And this misalignment, it starts early, doesn't it?
Oh, much earlier. There was a Mindler survey in 2022.
What did it find?
A staggering 93% of Indian students knew only about 7 traditional career options. 7.
Out of how many?
Out of potentially over 20,000 available paths.
That's incredibly limited.
And it gets worse. The India Skills Report 2024, it reveals over 65% of students pursue degrees that aren't even aligned with their interests.
So they're not prepared and potentially not engaged.
Precisely. It leads to what the article calls digital tools, but analog mindsets.
Meaning?
We have smartphones everywhere, government initiatives like AI labs are popping up.
But the schools?
Still largely examination-centric, focused on rote learning, not applicable skills.
And the outcome.
The Mercer Medal Graduate Skills Index for 2025 states only 43% of Indian graduates are actually job-ready, less than half.
Despite government programs like Skill India.
Even those have fallen short, hampered by, systemic issues. The core insight here really is that this huge youth population isn't a guaranteed win.
It's a potential time bomb.
Largely because the education system is prepping them for yesterday's economy, not tomorrow's AI-driven world.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this, for India's future?
Well, the country urgently needs a cohesive strategy. Something that truly integrates education, skill development, and what industry actually needs.
The article calls this a decisive decade.
Yes, and it warns that if we fail to act, it could lead to a social crisis.
It even references past student protests, like around the Mandel Commission.
Exactly. Times of significant social unrest linked to opportunities and fairness.
But there's hope.
Oh, absolutely. The good news is this problem is entirely fixable. If India really commits to preparing its youth, not for the jobs of yesterday, but for the careers of tomorrow, it's a massive undertaking, but achievable.
Okay, let's shift gears to another critical national challenge. Healthcare.
Right. The article here highlights a dual task for India.
Which is?
Expanding access for the millions who are still underserved.
While also ensuring it's affordable, right? Because costs keep rising.
Precisely. It's a tough balancing act.
So what's the proposed solution?
It's about an integrated framework, focusing on several key areas.
Like?
Strengthening insurance is a big one. Leveraging India's unique ability for scale. Embedding prevention deep into primary care.
And tech. Digital adoption.
Definitely accelerating digital adoption, plus ensuring regulatory clarity, and, crucially, unlocking sustained investment across the board.
Okay, let's talk insurance. That seems key. The article mentions low penetration.
Yeah, only about 15 to 18% of Indians are currently insured. That's very low.
But there's potential.
Huge potential. Gross written premiums are projected to grow incredibly fast, over 20% CAGR until 2030.
So the market is set to boom.
Absolutely. And even quite modest premiums, say 5,000 to 20,000, can unlock coverage worth lakhs.
Shielding families from those crippling health costs.
Exactly. It's about financial protection, too.
Now, you mentioned India's ability for scale. What does that mean in healthcare?
It's quite unique. India delivers quality care at an extraordinary scale, often much more efficiently than in the West.
Can you give an example?
Sure, think about an MRI machine. Here, it handles many, many times the volume of patients compared to one in, say, Europe or the US.
So hyper-efficiency.
Right. The next big leap is extending that efficiency beyond the metros into Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. That's the real frontier for access.
And government schemes play a role here, too, like Ayushman Bharat.
Definitely. PMJAY, as it's known, has already redefined access. It covers nearly 500 million people.
500 million people. That's incredible.
And its impact is measurable. A 90% increase in timely cancer treatments for beneficiaries, for example.
But there are challenges.
Yes. The next step is getting more private hospitals involved in these schemes.
Which requires
fair reimbursements, transparent processes, making it viable for them to participate.
Okay, let's talk prevention. The article calls it the most powerful cost saver.
It really is. There was a study in Punjab that showed something quite stark.
What was that?
Even families with insurance faced catastrophic expenses for non-communicable diseases, NCDs, things like diabetes, hypertension.
Because the costs are often in outpatient care. Diagnostics.
Yeah.
Things not always covered.
Exactly. So the solution is twofold. One, redesign insurance to actually cover outpatient and diagnostic costs better.
And two,
launch a massive nationwide push for prevention. And this needs public buy-in, a real shift in mindset.
so it's not just about more insurance.
No. True universal healthcare needs that radical shift towards proactive prevention, making primary care accessible and affordable enough to tackle those everyday chronic conditions before they bankrupt families. That's key.
And digital health, AI. How are they changing things?
Rapidly. We're seeing tools for early sepsis detection, for triaging diagnostic reports.
Helping doctors prioritize.
Yes. And remote consultations, of course. These aren't just gadgets. They improve outcomes, optimize doctor productivity.
And democratize access.
Yeah.
Especially with things like the Ayushman Bharat digital mission.
Absolutely. They help bridge geographical gaps.
But regulation and trust are vital, aren't they?
Crucial. The article mentions insurers in Delhi considering premium hikes, maybe 10–15%, just because of pollution-related illnesses.
Wow, environmental factors directly hitting premiums.
Yes, and the Finance Ministry is pushing the insurance regulator, IRDAI, to strengthen claims settlement and grievance redressal.
Why?
Because trust drives insurance uptake. If people don't trust that their claims will be paid fairly and quickly, they won't buy insurance. Simple as that.
What about investment? Is money flowing into the sector?
Yes, quite a bit. $5.5 billion in private equity and venture capital in 2023 alone.
Where's it going?
Mostly digital health, pharmacy networks, hospitals.
Yeah.
But it's skewed towards the metros right now.
Those are the challenges.
Directing that capital to the underserved areas, Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, building primary care networks, training specialists there, making sure growth means inclusion.
So the takeaway is that Indian healthcare is at a real inflection point.
Exactly. With the right alignment, investment, and strong public-private partnerships, it can move from being a privilege to becoming every Indian's right.
A truly inclusive and maybe even globally aspirational system.
That's the potential.
Okay, let's move to economic policy now. We're looking at the Prime Minister's recent Deepavali gift, as the article calls it.
Right. The next generation goods and services tax, or GST, reforms.
What's the core change?
Moving towards a predominantly two-tier structure, mainly 5% and 18%.
And lowering the average tax rate overall.
Yes. But the big question everyone's asking is, what's the impact on government revenues?
And should states be compensated if they lose out?
That's the crux of the debate. One expert cited, Manoj Mishra, estimates an initial short-term revenue dip.
How much?
Somewhere between 60,000 crore and maybe 1,000 crore annually.
Which is about?
Roughly 0.2 to 0.3% of India's GDP.
Is that seen as a permanent loss?
Not necessarily. He suggests it could be recouped over time. Through a few mechanisms, maybe higher rates on sin and luxury goods, increased consumption because essentials are cheaper, and reduced leakages through better compliance.
Okay. And another expert, Pratik Jain, adds a point about the 18% slab.
Yes, he clarifies that this slab, which is huge, it accounts for about 70% of GST revenues.
It's not changing much.
Right. It's not changing materially. And that's really key to limiting how severe the overall revenue hit might be. The government was careful there.
What about the average GST rate? Where does this leave it?
Pratik Jain estimates it was around 15% before GST, dropped to about 11.5% after the initial cuts.
And now?
It's expected to drop further, maybe to around 10% post-reforms.
And the significance of that 10% figure.
He notes it puts India in a pretty good spot compared to many developed economies. Could make India more attractive for manufacturing in the long run.
Okay, but here's where it gets tricky, right? The impact on states won't be uniform.
Not at all. Manufacturing and service-heavy states, think Maharashtra, Karnataka, they could see a more visible dip in their collections. Compared to states that are more agriculture-dependent, like Bihar or UP, their consumption baskets already lean towards essentials, which are often in the lower tax brackets anyway.
Past experience showed this disparity.
Yes, apparently some larger states saw a 3–4% dip during previous rate cuts, so the concern is real.
Which brings us back to compensation for states. What's the argument against it?
Pratik Jain argues that the center's 5-year compensation guarantee, which was part of the initial GST deal, has expired.
So states are on their own now.
His view is yes, they need to look at their own systems. Plug leakages, increase their tax base, attract investment, basically become self-sufficient. He feels regular compensation isn't sustainable.
But isn't there a risk there? What about smaller states, less industrialized ones?
That's exactly the counter-argument from Manoj Mishra. He points out that given how GST revenue is distributed, these smaller states get a negligible share.
So they really need some kind of safety net.
He argues they absolutely need some mechanism for compensation, maybe through the Consolidated Fund of India, which is the government's main account.
Support beyond just the GST cess funds.
Exactly, something like what some other developed countries did when they brought in GST.
So it's a clear tension. State autonomy versus national equity.
Definitely. Pratik Jain does suggest maybe a separate contingency fund could be created.
Citing Kerala's flood cess as a precedent.
Right. But his main advice to states is, look at the bigger picture. These reforms are about improving the ease of doing business, attracting investment.
Expect long-term gains, even if there's short-term pain or nervousness.
That's the perspective.
And the GST Council itself. It usually works by consensus.
It does, and they've already seen the Prime Minister's announcement, so the strong likelihood is that these rate cuts will go ahead.
The discussions will likely be on the details.
Okay.
Specific products, timing.
Exactly. More about the specifics rather than trying to derail the whole reform package.
All right, let's shift focus now to the science section, starting with an area that's often overlooked. The health of elderly women in India.
Yes, the article describes them as a quiet majority, often treated as, passive dependents rather than individuals with their own distinct needs.
And India is aging rapidly.
Very rapidly. And women are living longer than men, on average by about 2.7 years.
But longer life doesn't necessarily mean healthier life.
Unfortunately not. The McKinsey Health Institute estimates women spend about 25% more of their lives in poor health compared to men.
25% more.
Right.
And a lot of that is in the later years.
Yes, much of it. And by 2050, remember, people aged 60 and above will be over 20% of India's population. So this is a growing issue.
The article mentions their care-seeking behavior is complex.
It's heavily influenced by social factors, not just medical ones.
How so?
Well, Indian women are often socialized to prioritize their family's well-being above their own health.
So they delay seeking care for themselves.
Often, yes. And frequently, a spouse or adult children act as sort of gatekeepers to their healthcare decisions. They might decide if or when she sees a doctor.
Financial insecurity is another big factor mentioned.
Huge vulnerability. A UNFPA study back in 2011 found almost 60% of older women had no personal income at all.
60%.
And less than 20% could actually pay their own medical bills. Compare that to 44% of elderly men.
That economic dependency must prevent seeking early care.
Absolutely. If you can't pay, you hesitate to go.
There's also a digital gender gap among the elderly.
Yes, quite pronounced. Fewer older women have access to digital devices or the skills to use them.
Which impacts access to health info, maybe even booking appointments online.
Exactly. And another sign of dependency. 2/3 of older women are accompanied by family when they seek care.
Compared to only 41% of older men.
Right. It points to a higher level of reliance.
Now, what about the specific health conditions? Are they experienced differently by women?
Often, yes. And these nuances are frequently overlooked. Postmenopause, hormonal shifts, muscle loss, nutritional issues.
They can make common chronic conditions worse.
Yes, things like hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular illnesses can have more severe outcomes in older women.
And bone health.
A major risk. Osteoporosis, arthritis, much more common in women, but often underdiagnosed.
What about conditions specific to women, like urogynecological health?
Largely neglected after the reproductive years, unfortunately.
And cancers.
Cancers of the breast, cervix, ovaries, uterus, they disproportionately affect older women. And diagnosis often comes late.
Even for breast cancer, screening awareness drops with age.
Sharply. Despite the fact that over half of all cases occur in postmenopausal women.
That seems counterintuitive.
It highlights a gap in awareness and maybe access to screening programs for older age groups.
What about neurodegenerative diseases? Alzheimer's, dementia?
They're more likely in women, too. Partly biological reasons like estrogen decline, but also social factors.
Like living longer, potentially facing more isolation.
Exactly. The LASI study, longitudinal aging study in India, found women over 70 report higher cognitive impairment, but they're less likely to be formally diagnosed.
And mental health.
Depression.
Severely underreported and undertreated. HelpAge India notes only about 1 in 10 elderly women who show depressive symptoms actually seek help.
Just 1 in 10. That's heartbreaking.
It is. But, it's not all grim news.
Oh.
The article also highlights that elderly women are often proactively engaged in activities that boost their well-being.
Like what?
They're often deeply embedded in family and community networks. That acts as a protective factor against loneliness, cognitive decline.
Social connection is powerful.
Very. And many stay active: walking groups, yoga, taking up new hobbies. Plus, education is a key factor.
How so?
Education significantly drives better outpatient care-seeking behavior among them.
So connecting this all, what's the big takeaway?
India urgently needs more inclusive, truly gender-sensitive health systems. Policies have to acknowledge this unique gendered path women travel. How all these factors, social, economic, biological, shape their aging experience.
Exactly. We need systems that support and empower them through that journey.
Okay, let's shift gears again to the frontiers of science. Artificial wombs.
Right. The article kicks off by mentioning some recent fake news about a Chinese pregnancy robot.
Shows how easily we grab onto those sci-fi headlines, doesn't it?
It does. But while a fully artificial womb for humans growing a baby from start to finish outside a body is still very much science fiction.
The research is real and quite advanced.
Oh, definitely ongoing and advanced in certain areas.
How advanced are we talking?
Well, over a decade ago, Professor Hengqin Liu at Cornell did something remarkable.
What was that?
Engineered endometrial tissue, essentially mimicking the uterine lining. Grew it in an artificial setup.
And then?
Successfully implanted and grew a mouse embryo in it for a time.
Wow. And human embryos.
He even managed to grow human embryos for 14 days in a similar setup.
Which is the current ethical limit for research, right?
Exactly. They had to stop the experiment there. But it showed potential.
What about other animal research?
There's been work with goat fetuses grown in a prototype womb in Japan, and even live sharks tested in an artificial womb in New South Wales.
Sharks. Okay, that's diverse.
It shows the breadth of the research.
But completely separate from that is actual womb transplant surgery.
Yes, that's moved from sci-fi to reality. The first baby from a transplanted womb was born in Sweden back in 2014.
And since then?
Around 135 transplants globally, leading to about 65 babies born, including successful cases right here in India at Galaxy Care Hospital.
So that's a real, albeit complex, medical procedure now.
Correct. Now, where artificial wombs are currently being used primarily is for preterm babies.
How does that work?
They're placed in these things called biobags, basically a bag filled with fluid mimicking amniotic fluid.
And they get nutrients? Oxygen.
Through an artificial placenta connected to the umbilical cord, it gives these extremely premature babies a better chance to develop.
So it's more like an advanced incubator for the very premature.
That's a good way to think about its current main application. There are also experiments trying to produce eggs and sperm from stem cells, which is another related frontier.
So the takeaway here is...
It's a field of steady, incremental scientific progress. It's slowly blurring the lines between what seemed like pure fiction and what's becoming, step by step, a medical reality.
Especially in supporting fertility and early life development. Fascinating stuff.
Indeed.
All right, let's pivot now to global trade, a really significant recent development. New U.S. tariffs on Indian imports.
Yes, 50% tariffs imposed, effective August 27th. These are definitely sending ripples through the Indian economy.
So let's unpack the immediate impact. How do we gauge which sectors are hit hardest?
The article suggests looking at three things together. One, the sheer value of exports to the U.S. in that sector.
Okay, the dollar amount.
Two, how much of that sector's total exports go to the U.S., the dependency, basically.
Right, the U.S. market share.
And three, the final tariff rate they're now facing after the hike.
Makes sense. So which sectors are feeling the most pain right now?
Several that are very labor-intensive are being hit quite severely. Shrimp, for example.
What happened there?
Tariffs jumped from 10% all the way to 60%.
60%?
Yes. And prices in places like Andhra Pradesh, a major production hub, reportedly fell by about 20% almost immediately.
Ouch. What else?
Textiles and apparel, a huge employer in India.
What's the tariff?
A staggering 63.9%, up from about 14%.
That's a massive jump. The impact.
Reports of canceled new orders, freezing expansion plans, potentially downsizing. It's hitting major production centers hard.
Any other major ones?
Diamonds, gold, and jewelry facing over 50% tariffs now. Carpets, handicrafts, leather goods, many facing similar steep increases.
These are sectors employing millions, often in small and medium enterprises.
Exactly. The impact on jobs and SMEs is a major concern.
Are any sectors less affected?
Some, like maybe organic chemicals, metals like steel and aluminum, machinery, the impact is more modest there, but still significant for the SMEs involved.
So what's the Indian government doing in response?
Working on a multi-ministry plan, apparently, trying to ease the short-term pain.
Oh.
Promoting Swadeshi, vocal for local initiatives, trying to boost domestic demand.
And longer term?
The focus has to be on diversifying export markets, not being so reliant on one market, and leveraging existing free trade agreements better.
Building on that tariff discussion, there's another big U.S. trade policy shift.
Yes, the elimination of duty-free imports for low-value goods. That kicked in on August 29th.
This targets the de minimis exemption, right? What was that?
It allowed goods valued up to $800 per person per day to enter the U.S. duty-free.
And that's gone now. For everyone.
It was reversed for China back in May, and now it applies to all countries. No more $800 duty-free threshold.
Which products does this affect?
A huge range. Textiles, toys, cosmetics, electronic accessories. Basically a lot of the stuff people buy online from overseas.
So e-commerce giants like Temu and Shein are heavily impacted.
Very much so. Their business model relied heavily on that exemption.
What's the U.S. administration's reasoning for this change?
They frame it as a way to narrow the trade deficit, stop intellectual property theft, block counterfeit goods.
But there's pushback, opposition.
Oh, yes. Opponents, citing studies like one from the NBER, argue it could actually hurt the U.S. economy, reduce overall welfare by billions.
And disproportionately affect
poorer consumers who rely more on those lower-cost imports.
this de minimis rule. It wasn't always $800, was it?
No, it has roots way back in a 1930 Tariff Act, but it was only $200 until 2016.
Then it jumped to $800.
Yes, and the volume of these low-value imports just exploded after that. From about 134 million packages in 2015 to over 1.3 billion in 2024.
1.3 billion.
Yeah, which led to concerns that the cost of processing all these small packages was outweighing any potential duty revenue besides the other issues.
Is this happening elsewhere? Are other countries rethinking similar rules?
Yes, there are parallels. The EU is looking at changes too.
What are they considering?
Proposing handling fees for direct individual imports, getting rid of their own 150 duty-free threshold, partly to crack down on dangerous or illegal goods coming in.
And shifting more responsibility onto the e-commerce platform.
Exactly. Making them furnish more data to customs.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, what does it all signify?
Well, these actions by the U.S., by the EU, they're seen as a pretty telling statement.
How so?
That the basic pillars of the post-war global trade order, like the World Trade Organization, are being systematically undermined.
By the very countries that helped create them.
Precisely, and other nations are really struggling to figure out how to respond effectively to these kinds of unilateral trade measures. It's a major shift.
A really uncertain time for global trade.
Definitely.
Okay, for our final deep dive today, let's take a completely different turn, a delightful detour into Japanese culture.
Yes, looking at Dandadan, a hit manga and now anime series.
And how it's reimagining Japanese folklore for the digital age.
It's fascinating. Japanese folklore for centuries has been full of yukai.
Shapeshifters, ghosts, spirits, and objects.
Exactly. They're not quite demons, not quite gods, more like emissaries of animism, maybe restless souls.
And artists historically played a big role in defining them.
Huge role. People like Toriyama Sekian cataloged them, sometimes blurring the line between documenting old traditions and, well, inventing new variations.
But modernization threatened these beliefs.
It did in the 20th century. Belief in old spirits waned, but then new technologies came along.
Like
Kamishibai storytelling, which used picture cards, then manga, television. They brought yukai back into mass consciousness.
so the lore adapted.
Amazingly so. Figures like Shigeru Mizuki created new bestiaries, essentially updating the yukai world. Others just conjured up totally fresh monsters. It showed how elastic the whole tradition is.
And today they're thriving online, on phone screens, in horror manga.
Absolutely. Jostling alongside new urban legends born in the digital age.
Which brings us to Dandadan. How does it fit in?
It fully embraces this constant remixing, this updating. The creator, Yuki Nobutatsu.
What's his approach?
It's described as maximalist, almost punk rock. It just smashes together ghost stories, UFO conspiracies, teen romance.
A real collision of genres.
Totally. And it takes traditional yukai and urban legends and transforms them into these outrageous, hyper-stylized characters fit for the 21st century.
Can you give some examples? The article lists quite a few.
Oh yeah, the gallery of characters is wild. You've got Turbo Granny.
Turbo Granny.
Yeah, she's this old hag figure, but reimagined as a drag racer. She's crass, but also protective. It's a bizarre modern twist on the old, sad practice of abandoning the elderly.
Wow. Okay, who else?
Acrobatic Silky, an Edo period legend apparently, but redone for the parkour generation. The Evil Eye drawing on internet-era legends like the Kunekune, which supposedly drives you insane if you see it dance.
Even classical composers get involved.
Right. Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin become these psychic assassins called tulpas, hurling weaponized symphonies. It's completely over the top.
And Reiko Kashima, a version of the slit-mouthed woman legend.
Yes, Dandadan's version is apparently muscular and wears a crown. It just constantly subverts expectations.
Does it dip into cryptids too, like Bigfoot or Nessie?
It does. It reskins the Tsuchinoko, a mythical Japanese snake thing, as a kind of Mongolian death worm inspired by Dune.
Okay, and Nessie.
Becomes a sort of radioactive Shin Godzilla figure. It just pulls from everywhere.
Even the music reflects this.
Yeah, the anime apparently uses death metal sounds for exorcisms, performed by characters in leather gear. It's all part of the aesthetic.
And the title itself? Dandadan.
The repetition of Dan, meaning story, is meant to evoke a chant or a drum beat, like in Kaidan, the word for ghost stories.
It even ties into Buddhist texts.
Apparently so. Its cosmology dips into esoteric concepts like the womb realm. It shifts seamlessly from pop culture parody to deeper stuff.
So what's the key takeaway about Dandadan and yukai?
It's that this willingness to collage, to constantly update and remix the imagery, that's how yukai have always worked.
It's not disrespectful to tradition. It is the tradition.
Exactly. Many creatures we think of as ancient today were actually popularized or even invented by artists and novelists relatively recently. They stay alive because people believe in them, sure, but also because they're just fun to tell stories about.
And they become vessels for modern anxieties.
Precisely. Anxieties about friendship, sexuality, finding your place in the world. Dandadan uses these wild figures to explore very human themes.
What a fascinating look at how culture evolves. We've certainly navigated some complex and captivating terrain today.
We really have. From the critical need to skill India's youth and build universal healthcare,
To the intricate dance of global trade policies, and then this vibrant, ever-evolving world of Japanese folklore.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? How our social contracts, our economic stability, even our cultural stories are all connected.
And constantly adapting to new challenges, new possibilities.
Makes you think about those threads connecting seemingly disparate topics: human adaptation, ingenuity.
And that ongoing search for meaning in a world that changes so fast. How do you, listening, see the traditions of yesterday reshaping the innovations of tomorrow? Something to ponder.
Definitely.
Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description.
As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about.
We wish you a great day.